The ceramic mug slipped from my fingers and shattered on the kitchen tile before I even processed what I was seeing. Coffee splashed across the counter, soaking a stack of unopened mail and dripping onto my shoes. But I didn't move. I just stood there, frozen, my eyes locked on the laptop screen. There it was, in black and white. My savings account balance, $0. My stomach dropped. I blinked twice, refreshed the page, slapped the side of the laptop as if that might shake some sense into it. Nothing changed. The numbers stayed the same, unforgiving and final. My heart thundered against my ribs as I scrolled to the transaction history. Withdrawal, $31,042. Date, yesterday. Time, 2:14 p.m. Location, Maple Street branch. I couldn't breathe. That was my entire college fund. Every dime from the check my grandfather gave me on graduation day. Every dollar I'd scraped together working 3 years of weekends at Whitmore Books. Even the tips I saved from tutoring at the public library after school. Gone. The world around me blurred, like my apartment had suddenly tilted off axis. I grabbed my phone with shaking fingers and dialed the bank's customer service line. The hold music played. Soft jazz, painfully cheerful. It looped through 3 songs before a woman finally answered. "Thank you for holding. This is Karen from Wells North Federal. Can I have your name and account number, please?" I gave her everything, voice tight, breath clipped. I could barely get the words out fast enough. She paused as she pulled up my account. I could hear her typing. Another pause. Too long. "I'm seeing the transaction now, Ms. Whitmore," she said. The withdrawal was processed in person at our Maple Street branch. It was authorized by a co-signer on the account, Patricia Whitmore. I stopped breathing. "I'm sorry," I said, barely above a whisper. "That's my mother." "I understand," the woman said cautiously. "And I do see here she is listed as a co-signer, which gives her full legal rights to the account. I'm truly sorry, but—" I ended the call before she finished. There was a high-pitched ringing in my ears, like the world had gone silent and screaming all at once. My mother. My mother had emptied my entire account, without telling me, without even a single text. Not a word. Just gone. I stood there for I don't know how long. The apartment was still, too still. Outside the window, a soft April rain tapped the glass, but I couldn't feel anything. It was as if my brain had separated from my body and was watching me from the corner of the ceiling, detached, cold. When I finally moved, I moved with purpose. 15 minutes later, I was in my car, still wearing pajamas under my coat, shoes soaked from stepping in spilled coffee. I drove across town in a blur of red lights and gray streets. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. The house loomed into view, white colonial, perfectly manicured lawn, 2 ceramic flower pots flanking the porch like guards. It was the house I'd grown up in, the house that once smelled like apple pie and cinnamon during Christmas, the house where I used to fall asleep on the couch during thunderstorms, curled next to my mom. Now, it looked like a stranger's house. I didn't knock. I marched up the walkway, rain dripping from my hair, and rang the doorbell once. Hard. When the door opened, my mother stood there in a silk robe, hair perfectly styled, holding a glass of orange juice like she hadn't just detonated my future the day before. "Charlotte?" She blinked. "What are you—" I pushed past her into the foyer. "Where is it?" She closed the door behind me slowly. "Excuse me?" "My money," I said, my voice steady. Too steady. "The $31,000 you took from my account yesterday." She sighed and walked toward the kitchen. "Let's not do this here. Gary's home." Of course he was. I followed her in. Gary, my stepfather of 2 years, leaned against the kitchen island with his arms crossed. watching me like I was a child throwing a tantrum in a grocery store. He didn't say anything, he just smirked. My mother set her glass down, calm as ever. "Brooke's going to Cornell in the fall." I stared. "What does that have to do with—" "She needed help," she said simply, almost dismissively. "Housing, tuition deposit, travel. You've always been more resourceful, Charlotte. You'll figure something out." "You gave my college fund to your stepdaughter?" My voice cracked, rage fighting grief in my chest. "She's part of this family now," my mother said coolly. "You're being dramatic." I looked up toward the stairs as a floorboard creaked overhead. Brooke, listening, laughing probably. "That money was mine," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "It was a gift from Grandpa, for my future." "You should have thought about that before deciding to go to NYU instead of staying close to home," she said, folding her arms. "Sometimes choices have consequences." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I turned around and walked up the stairs to my old bedroom, half of it now claimed by Brooke, her stuff piled in the corner like it had always belonged there. I grabbed my duffel bag and started packing. A few clothes, my journals, the photo of me and Grandpa at my high school graduation. As I zipped up the bag, she stood in the doorway. "This is unnecessary, Charlotte," she said. "It's just money. Family is what matters." I placed the old family photo on the dresser, face down. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Grandpa. "I'm outside when you're ready." He knew. Somehow he knew. I walked down the stairs and passed them both without a word. My mother followed, calling after me. "You'll be back," she said as I opened the door. "You'll realize this is all just a misunderstanding." I didn't turn around, didn't say goodbye. Outside, the sky had cleared. My grandfather waited in his old pickup truck, engine running. I got in and shut the door. That was the last time I stepped into that house. And the first moment I knew I would never go back. The inside of my grandfather's truck smelled like old leather and the mint gum he always kept in the glove box. Neither of us said a word for the first few minutes. The rain had stopped, but the windshield wipers kept sweeping, rhythmic and unnecessary, like muscle memory in motion. I stared straight ahead, jaw clenched so tightly I thought I might crack a molar. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached over, turned off the wipers, and said, "We've got work to do." Back at his house, the one with the chipped white shutters and overgrown rose bushes, I collapsed into one of the creaky dining chairs while he cleared the kitchen table with military precision. Grandma appeared in the doorway, holding a tray of mugs, steaming with chamomile, and set them down without a word. Her eyes scanned my face like she could see every fracture beneath the surface. "I should have known," I said finally, voice hoarse. "I should have seen this coming." Grandpa slid a worn legal pad in front of me. "You're going to want to start writing everything down." I blinked. "What?" "Everything. Dates, details, anything you can remember. This isn't about feeling sorry for yourself. This is about building a case." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table until dawn, documenting every memory that now carried a sinister aftertaste. The week before the withdrawal, my mom had asked when I'd be heading back to campus. I'd thought she was being polite. I hadn't realized she was checking to see when she'd have a clear window to walk into a bank and drain my account. I wrote about the time she scoffed at my scholarship application essays, calling them dramatic. The way she kept pressing me to transfer to a local college, to save money and be closer to family. I remembered how Gary had once said, laughing over dinner, "Don't worry, Brooke's the one we're betting on." Back then, I thought it was a joke. The next morning, Grandpa brought out a box from the garage. Inside were file folders, labeled meticulously with years and events, tax returns, insurance forms, even court records from a long-forgotten property dispute. He handed me an empty one marked, "Charlotte, 2023. "You're going to make your own trail," he said. "If she ever tries something like this again, we'll be ready." We pulled bank statements going back 6 months. At first, I didn't see it. Then it hit me. $200 missing here, $50 there. Small amounts I might have dismissed before. Gaslighting withdrawals. Testing my attention. My throat tightened. "She's been doing this for months." Grandpa didn't blink. "And she knew you wouldn't notice. Not until it was too late." I learned how to run credit reports, scan for unauthorized accounts. Turns out, 3 credit cards had been opened under my name during my final semester, maxed out within weeks. I'd never even applied for them. One of them had a shipping address, our old house. "Legally," Grandpa said, "she's exposed herself. She won't see it that way, but this is identity theft, plain and simple." I stared at the documents, my name on charges I never made. My credit quietly decaying while I studied for midterms and worked overtime shifts at the bookstore. "She was waiting for me to need her," I whispered. Grandma looked up from the teapot she was scrubbing. "Honey?" "She wanted me to fall apart, so she could come in like the savior, control me." No one answered. They didn't have to. The next day, I filed a fraud alert with the credit bureaus. I changed every password I'd ever used. I called the bank and requested a printed copy of the withdrawal slip. I made an appointment at the campus financial aid office and sat with Diane Abernathy, a stern woman with sharp glasses and a sharper voice, who tilted her head after reading my file. "This address change request. Was it from you?" I shook my head. "Then we have a problem." She slid a paper across the desk, already signed, already processed, an attempt to reroute my mail to my mother's house. Without my knowledge, I felt like the floor was crumbling beneath me. "I'll flag your file," she said. "And I want you to check your credit weekly for a while." I nodded, swallowed hard. By the end of that week, I had a binder full of records, printouts, and annotations. I labeled it Operation Recovery, half joking, half deadly serious. Grandpa helped me scan and upload everything to a cloud folder, 2 backups, 1 offline. We sat side by side in his office, surrounded by papers and empty mugs, when he said, "I don't think this is the first time she's done something like this." I turned to him. "What do you mean?" He rubbed his temples, suddenly older than I'd ever seen him. "Your Aunt Marianne. When she dropped out of college, we thought it was drugs. That's what your mom told us. But now—" He exhaled. "I wonder if she ever had a choice." That night, I texted Aunt Marianne. I hadn't spoken to her in years. Her reply came fast. "Meet me tomorrow. There's something I need to tell you." We met at a bakery downtown, both awkward at first, until I told her what happened. "I was 19, she said. "My parents gave me a college fund, $12,000. She told them I was using, that I'd run off with a boyfriend. She took the money and told me I didn't deserve help." Sound familiar? I stared, numb. She reached into her purse and handed me a small black planner. "This is hers, not a diary. A ledger, projects, passwords, people she thought she could use. You're in it. So is Brooke." I took it, fingers trembling. "She's not impulsive, Charlie. She plans." I nodded, the pressure building in my chest sharp and heavy. But I didn't cry. Instead, I went home, printed everything, and mailed a certified letter to my mother. Inside was a single page, a demand for repayment in full, plus interest, plus a record of every legal infraction I could prove. I didn't ask for an apology. I wanted justice, and now I had the blueprint to get it. The letter must have hit her like a slap in the face. I sent it certified. Delivery confirmation, signature required. No room for denial. But instead of a reply or a check, what I got back was silence. Not the kind that indicates guilt or reflection, but the dangerous, seething kind. the kind that meant she was gearing up for war. By the end of the week, the whispers started. It began with a phone call from my uncle in Wisconsin. I hadn't spoken to him since his divorce 5 years ago, but suddenly he was concerned about family unity and how my mom was just trying to do her best. Then came the Facebook posts, not from her directly. She never got her hands dirty that way, but from the orbit around her. Brooke posted a series of aesthetic shots of their newly renovated guest room with the caption, "Home should always be a safe place. Grateful for my family." The comment section filled with sympathetic voices. "Your mom is an angel." "So sorry about your sister. Some people forget who really loves them." Some people. Every post felt like a blade between my ribs. Still, I didn't respond. I took screenshots, archived comments, filed them away. Every lie she told, every subtle dig cloaked in faux concern, evidence. Then came the email. No subject line, just one sentence. "You've always been so ungrateful. We did what was necessary for the family. We." She didn't even bother denying it. But that wasn't the part that made my chest constrict. It was what came next, calls to my boss. I found out when she knocked gently on my office door one morning, concern etched across her face. "Charlie," she said, "I got a strange voicemail from someone claiming to be a concerned relative. Said we should look into your financial history. That there might be instability." I sat there, lips parted, unable to speak. My blood ran cold. "I didn't take it seriously," she added quickly. "But you should know, it's being escalated." That night, I couldn't eat. I sat in the dark of my apartment, watching the city lights flicker outside my window, my heart pounding like it had nowhere left to go. She was trying to destroy my credibility, my career. Not just steal from me, but erase me. And the worst part? She was smiling through it all. She posted family throwbacks on social media. Me, as a child, sitting on her lap. Christmas mornings. First day of school. Carefully curated nostalgia, designed to manipulate. One post hit harder than the rest. "Raising Charlotte was the joy of my life. I just wish she remembered how much we sacrificed for her." 28 comments, all sympathy, all people who didn't know the truth. And then, Brooke's video. Tearful, raw, shaking hands on camera. I didn't want to say anything, but it breaks my heart that my sister turned her back on us. Mom cries every night. We just wanted to help her make better choices. She knew exactly what she was doing. The comments exploded. "You poor girl. No one deserves a sister like that. Charlotte should be ashamed." I watched it in full silence, jaw clenched so tight I could feel a migraine blooming at the base of my skull. It wasn't just betrayal, it was public execution. She wasn't content to hurt me privately. She wanted the world to watch me bleed. But she underestimated one thing. I don't break quietly. I started hearing from distant cousins, old teachers, even a former babysitter, all echoing the same script. "Maybe this is just a misunderstanding. Have you tried talking to her? She's still your mom." I didn't reply to any of them. I sent every message to my lawyer, every voicemail to a secure drive. If she wanted a stage, I'd give her one, in court. Then came the icing on the cake. A letter. Handwritten, monogrammed stationery, perfume lingering like decay. The kind of thing she used to leave in my lunchbox when I was 8. "Charlotte, you've made your point, but dragging this out any further is just cruel. Brooke needs stability. I need peace. You've always had a temper, and I've always forgiven you. Return home. Let's discuss this face to face. Love, Mom. Love." I laughed, out loud, alone in my kitchen. The sound startled me, sharp and foreign, like something broken. She thought she could sweet-talk her way out of it, that I'd melt under the weight of childhood memories and false tenderness. She didn't realize something had changed in me, something permanent. I wasn't the girl in the photo albums anymore. The one who begged for her approval, who cleaned the house so she wouldn't snap, who sat silent at dinner while Gary and Brooke monopolized the conversation. That girl was gone, and in her place was someone who kept receipts, someone who knew how to weaponize truth, someone with a plan. My next move wasn't fury. It was strategy. I wrote my response that same night, not with emotion, but precision, referencing bank records, legal precedents, dates, signatures. I included a copy of the withdrawal slip, a screenshot of the security footage, and a clear demand: repay the full amount, with interest, or face legal consequences. I didn't sign it love. I signed it Charlotte Whitmore. And for the first time in my life, I meant every word. Because when someone steals your future and dares to act like you owe them, you stop asking for justice. And you start taking it. The building where my attorney's office was located had that sterile, corporate chill to it. Polished tile floors, gray walls, abstract art that meant nothing. I sat in the conference room, fingers laced tightly together on the glossy table, watching the reflection of the fluorescent lights above ripple across the wood grain like water disturbed by wind. Beside me sat Ms. Chen, composed, razor-sharp, and dressed in a navy blazer that radiated power. Across the table were 3 empty leather chairs, each arranged with a manila folder and a bottle of still water. "They're 5 minutes late," she noted, without looking at her watch. "Standard move. Establish dominance." I didn't reply. I was too busy rehearsing my breathing. Deep, steady, contained. The war wasn't coming. It had already started. When the door finally opened, I felt my stomach knot, but my face remained calm. Patricia swept into the room like she owned it. Pearl earrings, tailored dress, that same theatrical confidence she wore like perfume. Gary followed, jaw tight, carrying a briefcase he probably hadn't opened in years. And Brooke trailed behind, eyes downcast, like a shadow trying to disappear. Their lawyer, an older man with slicked-back silver hair and a too-practiced smile, introduced himself with a flourish. "We understand there has been some tension," he said smoothly, placing his leather folder on the table. "We'd like to find a civil resolution." Ms. Chen didn't blink. "Let's begin with the documentation." I opened the envelope in front of me and began sliding the papers forward one at a time, like laying cards in a high-stakes game. First, a bank statement showing the full withdrawal amount, including timestamp and location. Next, a printed image from the branch's security footage, Patricia and Gary unmistakably present at the counter, the date matching perfectly. Then, a copy of the signed withdrawal slip, reason listed as tuition payment for Charlotte Whitmore. Patricia scoffed. "This is absurd. I was a joint owner. It was entirely within my legal rights." Ms. Chen leaned forward. "And yet, the funds were intended for Charlotte's education. The withdrawal was labeled tuition, not personal use or redistribution. That misrepresentation may constitute financial misappropriation." Their attorney shifted in his chair. "Surely this doesn't warrant litigation." "We haven't even reached the identity fraud," Ms. Chen said, sliding over credit reports with 3 unauthorized credit cards opened under my name. All activated while Charlotte was still a dependent, all traced to mailing addresses connected to your client. Silence. I stared directly at my mother. Her lips had tightened into a line so thin it almost disappeared. Brooke's hands fidgeted in her lap, eyes flicking between the documents, like they might burst into flames. "We're not here for drama," Ms. Chen continued, her voice measured. "We're here for resolution, full repayment of the stolen amount, $31,040, plus 6 years of accrued interest, totaling $38,622.07. Payable in certified funds within 48 hours. Patricia's composure cracked. "This is extortion." "No," I said, finally speaking. This is accountability. Gary opened his mouth but closed it again when Ms. Chen turned toward him with a look that could freeze stone. There's more, I said, reaching into my folder for the final piece. A notarized statement from the Financial Aid Office Director outlining the attempted fraudulent address change filed in my name. That did it. The lawyer's smile faltered. Patricia's color drained. Brooke looked like she might cry. Ms. Chen gathered the documents and slid them back into the envelope. You have until Friday, she said, standing. If we don't hear from you by then, we proceed with a formal complaint. I stood too, legs steady, despite the adrenaline surging through my veins. For a second, I locked eyes with my mother. You taught me how to fight, remember? I said softly. Just not in the way you hoped. We left without another word. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by boxes of paperwork, folders stacked like armor. I poured a glass of wine and stared at the wall where my degree hung. Earned, not gifted. The next morning, the message came through. We'd like to resolve this privately. No need for court. Let's be reasonable. They finally understood they weren't holding the cards anymore. By the afternoon, a courier arrived at my door with a certified check and a thin envelope. The note inside was written in her signature cursive, still delicate despite everything. Let's put this behind us. Family doesn't sue each other. I folded it once, twice, and fed it through the shredder. She didn't apologize. She never would. But I didn't need remorse. I had results. I walked to the bank, deposited the check, and took a printed statement home with me. I framed it next to my diploma, a trophy in numbers. 38,622 bonsinifant. Not just reimbursement, reclamation, of dignity, of truth, of everything she tried to erase. That night, I slept 8 hours straight for the first time in months. And when my phone lit up with another message, Brooke, asking if we could talk, I didn't feel rage or grief. I felt control. Because now, everything happened on my terms. 1 year later, I no longer flinch when my phone vibrates. I don't brace for impact or feel that spike of dread like a punch behind the ribs. These days, notifications are boring. Work emails, brunch plans, the occasional spam about refinancing student loans. No dramatic voicemails. No late-night sob stories. No one demanding I play the dutiful daughter. The silence isn't lonely. It's peace. I still remember what my mother said as she stormed out of that conference room. You'll regret this someday. You'll need us, and we won't be there. But the truth is, I don't need them. I never did. The check she sent, cold, precise, signed with practiced elegance, was deposited, documented, and buried. Not a reward, but a refund. She didn't give me anything. She returned what was stolen. Nothing more, nothing less. What mattered wasn't the money. It was what came after. I used part of the repayment for a down payment on a small 2-bedroom condo just outside the city. The rest, I invested. Dividends, high-yield savings, a few cautious stocks. The spreadsheet tracking it all lives on my desktop, color-coded and protected by 3 levels of encryption. I've built a new kind of security, one no one can take from me. The other night, I hosted dinner in my new space. My grandfather carved roast chicken while Grandma arranged dessert plates. My college roommate Dana brought wine. My friend Miguel, who started in the mailroom the same week I joined Westbridge, laughed so hard he nearly tipped his chair when Grandpa recounted the legal showdown. Not a single one of them asked why my mother wasn't there, because now my life is full of people who don't weaponize love. A few weeks ago, I ran my first financial literacy seminar at a local nonprofit. I stood in front of a room of college freshmen, some quiet, some eager, some with the same nervous glint in their eyes that I used to see in the mirror. Halfway through, a girl with faded braids and a denim jacket raised her hand. What if someone in your family opens credit cards in your name? she asked, voice barely above a whisper. The room fell silent. I nodded. You build your case, you track everything, and you don't let guilt keep you quiet. Her shoulders dropped just slightly, like someone had lifted a weight from her spine. After class, she lingered by the door. He's my stepdad, she said. They said I was being selfish, that I should forgive him to keep the peace. I held her gaze. They count on that, I said. That you'll confuse silence with love. That you'll fold. Should I press charges? I didn't answer him immediately. Instead, I asked, do you want your story to end with their comfort or your truth? She left with a folder of resources and a look I recognized. Resolve. Later that night, I opened my own laptop and scrolled through a folder labeled Charlotte, Evidence. 6 years of screenshots, letters, legal documents. I should have deleted it by now. I haven't. Some things are worth remembering, not to dwell, but to stay grounded. I no longer crave an apology. Closure stopped being a door. I waited for her to open. Turns out, healing didn't come from her guilt. It came from my boundaries. That family photo, the one from Lake Michigan when I was 8, smiling between two parents who no longer exist in my world, now sits in a memory box under my bed. I didn't burn it. That would have given it power. I simply replaced it on my dresser with something better. A snapshot from my graduation. Grandpa on one side, Grandma on the other. Aunt Marianne clapping behind me, caught mid-cheer. That photo tells the real story. The story where I survived, where I rebuilt. The morning sun creeps into my apartment now and falls across hardwood floors I paid for. The kitchen smells like cinnamon and clean countertops, not anxiety. And when the mail comes, it's addressed to Charlotte Whitmore, not some version of me designed for someone else's approval. A week ago, Brooke sent another message. This one didn't ask for help. I didn't know everything. I'm sorry. Can we talk sometime? I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I wrote back. Maybe, but only with the truth. All of it. Nothing less. She read it, never responded. I was okay with that, because for once, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. That's what power really is. Not revenge, not control, not victory parades or courtroom wins. It's the quiet confidence that comes when you no longer fear being alone. When you know, finally, who you are without their approval. And now, I want to ask you this. Have you ever had to cut off someone you were told to love unconditionally? At what point does protecting your peace outweigh keeping the peace? Because I've learned, sometimes love doesn't look like sacrifice. Sometimes it looks like a locked door, a clear line, and the decision to never go back. And if that makes me heartless in their eyes, then so be it, because I know better now. I'm not the villain in their story. I'm just not their victim anymore.